Hey there. Welcome to this GCSE course on higher mathematics. So this first video is just a quick introductory video about the general structure of the course, what you can expect, and how I've designed it, how I wish for you to engage with it in order to get the most from doing this course. So first of all, let's let me just introduce myself. So my name's Vincent. I've studied mathematics at all levels, from school to college to university and beyond. I've used it throughout my career, which has been in a lot of GPS, radio signal processing, all that sort of thing. And that's what I like to bring into the classroom with my tuition and this course, to take all this mathematics that you need to learn to study for your exams, but also to show you how this is actually used in the real world, or how you guys will perhaps go and use it in the real world if you choose to do mathematics or hard sciences in the long run. So we always begin with just a lesson plan where you can see straight away at a glance, the things we're going to cover in that lesson, what we're going to learn, why it's important. I think that's important, to explain why it's important and how it's going to help you in your exam, and like I said, how it's used in the real world. And each section, how they relate to each other, how they relate to the previous lessons that we've done, how it's all interconnected, because math is a very interconnected subject. Everything kind of builds upon itself. Um, so yeah, work for each section like in that way, and then at the end of each session, I like to finish with a "Did you know" section. So, did you know this thing about the topic that we've learned, which is often something that there'll be a bit beyond the scope of your actual studies, but it's to kind of stoke your imagination and again bringing it into the real world, or perhaps sometimes I'll give you somewhat of a challenge question. So something that perhaps you haven't seen before that's taken what we've learned and taken it to the next level to really get you thinking about that topic. Because certainly this is the higher course, and so you're going to come across top level, grade nine questions, and some of those grade nine questions can be very much that way, where it's really kind of pushing you slightly beyond, what you've come across before, and so that's what I try to do with these challenge questions, and then we finish up on this slide each time, which is like the key takeaways I want you to take away from the lesson. So we have first of all the lesson summary, just quick summary of all the things we've learned in that lesson. We have the top tip, which is like the main thing I want you to take away. So it's like if there's only one thing that you really make sure that you understand in that lesson, I want it to be this. Um, then we have the coming up section, which is what's coming up in the next lesson. Whether that's building upon what we've currently done, so it's sort of tying things together, or perhaps a completely new topic. And then finally, we have the checklist over on the right, where we have all the important points, all the really important things you should learn from that lesson, and treat it like a checklist, like check, check, yeah, I've done that, done this, because like I mentioned a moment ago, math is a very sequential subject. One thing builds upon another, and something that that I explain in detail in this lesson, I would perhaps, if we use that in the next lesson, I might gloss over it quite quickly because I already assume you understand it from this one. So that's how I would encourage you to engage with this course, is to make sure that you understand each lesson fully before moving on to the next. So, that's it for the introduction. So I will see you in the first lesson, which will be on numbers and number theory. I'll see you there.